Hi, I'm Jen, and I'm going to share with you how I got to this point in my life. My husband and I have been married for 12, almost 13 years. And when we first got married, we ate like the farthest from healthy. Like when we first started dating, we like would go to Meijer and buy Hot Pockets when they were 10 for 10. Like that was like our thing. He loved Mountain Dew and Fast Break candy bars. Like those were his thing. Like my mom actually bought him for Christmas when you're like a case of Mountain Dew and a case of Fast Break candy bars. And we were so far from anything healthy. We were standard American diet. And so when we got married, I also came off of like a steady diet of fast food while I was in cosmetology school. Like that was just our normal. I was kind of stuck at home and I realized that I would weigh myself and I got like 1 pound from a number that I never wanted to see on the scale. And I was like, something has to change. And so I started learning how to cook. Like I grew up in a family that cooked everything from scratch, but I didn't really know how to cook. It was kind of weird. And I started learning how to cook. And I feel like that was kind of my first step into anything that was remotely healthy. During that time though, I used to have like a really regular period. Like I could tell you the day and the time that my period was going to show up. So after we got married, about 3 months later, I had a late period for the first time ever in my entire life. And I wasn't on birth control. So, like that wasn't a factor. And so it's kind of bizarre to have it show up a day late and you're kind of like, and our goal, like we didn't want to have kids for 5 years. Like we had the 5-year plan, like so many people have. And it was a day late and I ended up taking a pregnancy test. It was negative. The next day my period showed up and I was like, oh, it was just a weird thing, I guess. But then the next month it happened again, only it was like 2 days late. And the next month it happened again. And it was like a week late. And I ended up going to the doctor and they ended up diagnosing me with polycystic ovarian syndrome. The doctor basically just gave me the option. She was like, if you don't want to have kids, you can go on birth control. If you do want to have kids, then we'll give you this medication, which is a diabetic medication. It was metformin. And so we ended up choosing that because I just wanted to get my period started again. Because by the time we got to that appointment, I didn't really even have a period. So, but we'd gone through that whole thing and our original plan was to not have children. And by the time we got to that point where we were faced with the decision of metformin or birth control, my choice was metformin because we had warmed up to the idea of having kids. So we went into it with that mindset. And we weren't like trying to have kids. We weren't, charting anything, which I had no idea about charting at the time. It was just really like, if we get pregnant, it'll be great. And so that's kind of how we lived life for a couple of years. And I ended up in an internship and in about 2008. And when I was in the internship, that was when I spent more time learning because we still weren't pregnant. And it kind of was really not sitting well with me that it had gone that long without being able to have a baby. So I kind of learned a little bit about charting. I started charting and doing all these things. But it wasn't until and I started looking up polycystic ovarian syndrome because my doctor didn't really give me a ton of information. So I did my own research and started finding some things, which kind of started me down this path of eating. And then I read a book and I don't even know if I should say it on here, but I will. It was called Skinny Bitch. And I read this book and it was like a huge eye-opener to like the food industry in a way that I never thought of it. Now, I don't necessarily agree with everything that she writes in that book, but it was an eye-opener is basically what it did for me. And I literally did like a complete flip. And we like cleaned out our cabinets and we threw away everything that was like processed and gross and we became vegans overnight. And it just started us on this healthy eating journey. We still didn't get pregnant for quite a long time. But we definitely our health changed just from eating plant-based. And then over some time, I ended up going back to some of my old food habits. Eating, I kind of went to like a Weston A. Price diet. Like if you want to talk about diets, I have been on so many of them from vegan to vegetarian to, Weston A. Price to paleo. Like I have done them. And the only one that I felt like really good on was when I ate plant-based. And, you know, but my husband has issues that never really disappeared either when we were on any of this stuff. So fast forward, we ended up having Finn. It took us 10 years to the month. We got pregnant. It was 9 years of infertility. We got pregnant with him. And then when he was born, it was 10 years to the month. And I started having some really intense symptoms. And it was really rough. Like, I can tell you that I was in a hotel room on the floor crying because it was so bad. And I ended up doing like crazy things. Like, I don't know if you ever heard of I Quit Sugar, but I ended up following their program. I spent like $200 to do this like I Quit Sugar program thing. And it actually cleared up the issue that I was dealing with, though it wasn't like a long-term thing. And it kind of just sent me into this thing of like what I was doing wasn't working. And I needed to find answers because clearly I'm still dealing with stuff that's like deep inside of my body. And I knew that, so at the end of that summer, I had a friend start talking about some health issues that she was having. And she ended up finding, she tried some different things. Like she tried, you know, like the bone broth and something that's similar to Weston A. Price. And she was trying that. She's like, when that wasn't working. And she ended up finding a book. And she didn't talk about it directly, and I was kind of curious. And she started doing these smoothies with wild blueberries and coconut water, spirulina. And she was like, I just feel amazing. She did this 28-day cleanse. And she was like, by the time she got to the end of it, she was like, I feel so good. And I was like, what is she doing? And I had been gifted an Amazon gift card. And I love health books. Like, if you want to put a health book in front of me, I will put down any book and I will read a health book. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to Amazon. I'm going to take this gift card and I'm going to buy a health book. And I typed in, all I did was type in health. And up came Anthony William, like as the first book. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I was like, I don't know who this guy is. When I click on it, and like I'm kind of reading about it, I was like, this is really interesting. And it kind of sounds like what my friend was doing. And so I ended up buying the sample. And then I loved it so much that I bought books, and my mom bought me one, so I ended up with all of the books. And it was just eye-opening, and I really felt like God had directed me into that information. And it ended up being so eye-opening because I had mono as a freshman acutely, and I ended up with missing 6 weeks of school. And I always had this like sinking feeling that it never left my body, and that it was still wreaking havoc. And now I know that mono was related to the polycystic ovarian syndrome that I was diagnosed with. And then the Hashimoto's that I was diagnosed with a few years later. Like, all of that was connected from the Epstein-Barr, you know, and the mono. And I, like, as I was reading these books, and it was just like, oh my word. So my husband and I decided that we would go on this venture, this medical medium venture, and we would follow what he said. Because what do we have to lose at this point? We've tried every other diet. I'm still dealing with symptoms, you know, and I've been to doctors, and at this point I'm still dealing with symptoms. So we started this journey, and, you know, it was about a month later that Jillian and I connected, and it was been really good to have that friendship. And I, like, in that last year, because we've been on this diet now for just over a year, this lifestyle, and like, it's kind of crazy to think about all the things that you don't deal with anymore. So, like for my husband, when he follows this really, really well, he used to get this rash all over his body that he's been to doctors all like for, you know, on his face, in his hair, and it goes away. Like, it clears up completely when he follows what Anthony has to say, which is amazing because they couldn't even diagnose it. It was like a mixture of eczema and psoriasis, and it's completely gone. And I had like this like these bald spots on, like, I'll have to get a before and after at some point and show you guys, because like I had these bald spots on my hairline that I just always had. And I was noticing recently that like I've got all this regrowth coming in, like they're not bald anymore. And then, you know, we dealt with infertility for 10 years, and we literally, like, I stopped nursing our son. I got my period back a month later, 3 weeks later. We tried once and we got pregnant. Like, that never happened before. And, you know, Anthony talks about, you know, infertility and miscarriage and, you know, and just in changing that for yourself. And, you know, I really believe that the dietary changes that we made have made a huge difference. Now our son, Finnegan, he also would get these like rashy, hivey bumps all over his body. We couldn't figure it out for the life of us. Come to find out, it's from dairy and eggs. We took those out and those bumps are completely gone. He does not have them anymore. It is like, it makes you feel so good as a mom to know that he's also a very picky toddler. He's been a challenge for me for food. But over the last year, just really being consistent and just offering healthy options, he now, is choosing things like bananas and like, okay, he never liked to eat raw fruit. I know people are like, well, most kids do. My kid didn't. But he does now. He'll choose like bananas and berries. He does like smoothies, and it just feels good as a parent to know, to be able to go to the grocery store and load up your cart with like good food and know that you're feeding your child the best that you possibly can, and giving them the best start to life. And that's been really, it's been really rewarding. And then to know that like this baby that we're having and just, 8 months is getting a great start right now. And just having this information. So I am excited about being here and being able to share with you like what, how we were able to make these transitions and make these changes, so that you can also do that, so you can bring health to your family as well. Thank you so much for watching our video today. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe to our channel so that you can stay up to date on all of the content that we'll be releasing. You can also find us on Instagram at Jenn_Ann_Jill. Have a great day.